Well guys, you can see we have some cold wintry weather around here. And it's weather like that that allows me to get out in the garage like this instead of having to go to work. So we're gonna try and knock out the brake pedal today. As you can see, we have no brake pedal, but I got a lot of boxes. Now my original plan for this truck with the brake pedal was to have a stock style brake pedal that comes up through the floor and where the master cylinder is down under the floor. This is the stock brake pedal that came out of the truck. So, you know, basically there's a hole in the floor, brake pedal comes up through, there's here's your rod that's under the floor of the truck, like the floor would be right about here, and this feeds the master cylinder. But that is old and heavy, and there's a clutch pedal, which I don't need. But I liked the idea of keeping that style. And that's where this box comes in. I purchased an aftermarket brake pedal from Speedway Motors that does just that. Goes under the floor. I bought a master cylinder and everything that mounts under the floor, even with remote reservoirs and a proportioning valve. Same one I have on the Le Mans. Now the problem is, it doesn't fit. I tried. I really don't have, how you can see from up here, there's not much room between the frame and the tranny, and that's where this thing has to sit. And this brake pedal assembly, it's just too wide. I can't, even if I tried cutting it down, it wouldn't be safe, it wouldn't function properly, because I tried to think of all different ways I could modify it to make it work, and ultimately it's just not going to work. So I've had to shift gears, and I now have all these beautiful brake parts I can't use. So I'm gonna have to try and sell those off. These 3 boxes are what we're gonna use. So what we have here is Wilwood's reverse mount double master cylinder brake pedal. It's aluminum, it's not heavy at all. Very, very light, especially in comparison to the original. Just to give you a part number, there is the part number. Here I've got the master cylinders. Just 2 of these guys. These are, I believe, the 7/8 bore. There's the part number for it. There's different size bores you can get depending on your brake setup that you have. The 7/8 bore is kind of the middle of the road size. You can get smaller sizes. You can go 1 inch, 1 1/8. You can go down, I don't know what they go down to, 3/4, maybe smaller. 7/8 was kind of like middle of the road, so I'm gambling a bit by going with that size, but whatever. I didn't. It's quite the process to go through and figure out what size. Like, I could have let them know what brake kit I have in the front, and that solves that problem. The brake kit on the back, because it's a Ford Explorer, disc brakes up on the back, I would have to try and research the size of the piston inside the caliper, which I've done once before when I spec'd out this one, but that was quite a while ago. And I really was not in the mood that night to try and figure that out. So this could bite me again, but that's totally on me. It's not on Wilwood or anything like that. That's on me. But we're gonna try the 7/8, and I mean, if it's not right, It's only a couple $100 for new ones. Like these were like $80 a piece, so they're not bad. So let's start putting this thing together. So now we have our assembled unit. Not much to putting it together. Just thread these push rods into the, I guess, clevises, and then bolt it on. Now I didn't tighten the top bolts because I do have to take these back off at some point and bench bleed them. But this is all just so I can basically mock-up purposes. But yeah, it's a pretty neat design. They've got this like barbell going through the back, and you can adjust which one you want to apply more pressure. So let's say this one's the front and this one's the rear. On a typical car, you'll have more pressure to the front. So you can like shorten up this rod so that when you push the pedal, it applies this one first. Or actually, I guess you'd lengthen it, shorten this guy. But anyway, you have options, you have adjustability. With a vehicle like this, I actually want more brake pressure to the rear. Larger contact surface, very skinny tire. I don't want that tire to lock up. So I do have to do some playing around and adjusting, which you have with this setup. So you don't need a proportioning valve. This is basically a proportioning valve that you have to kind of fine tune yourself. But it's a pretty simple setup. Reverse mount setup. So now we need to find a good home for it under the dash. So something like that is what I was thinking. I gotta try and keep it as close to the steering column as possible, just because I need to have room. You know, I have a left foot, and I'd like to have room for my left foot. So I want to keep the pedal over that way if I can. And, you know, as much as I want to tuck this under the dash, I only have so much room before the brake pedal hits the floor. But as you can see, there's really nothing to mount to under here. So I'm probably going to have to bring something off the side of the cage over here, off the down bar, and make up some kind of a mounting bracket for it, because I don't have much to go off of. But somewhere around there, there's going to be, I think, a little bit of trial and error, because as the pedal comes down, there's quite a bit of swing to it. And until this is full of fluid, I don't know exactly how much swing it's going to have, because right now there's no fluid, therefore there's no resistance. So there's a lot of swing. But once you get fluid in there, it might move only half of that. But I'm not ready to plumb anything yet. So all I can do is I gotta build some kind of a mount with an adjustment that if I have to move this in and out, I can. I hate the idea of knowing that I could spend all this time building a mount that won't work. But like I said, I'm not ready to plumb anything yet and put fluid to it. So I do run a risk of building a mount that doesn't set it out far enough, and my pedal just hits the floor before I'm under full brake. But I mean, it's a risk you take when you buy a universal part like this and you're trying to make it work in something that you're building. That's why I'm going to try and build a mount that utilizes these 4 holes. And I want to make it so this whole rig can slide back and forth. So if I have to space this whole thing further away from the floor, I can. And then if I find that there's very little throw to the pedal, I can tuck this closer to the floor to give myself more leg room, because they do stick out to about here. So the further back I can tuck them, the better. So I have a general idea as to what I can do, and what better way of getting it done than to just start doing it? All right, I have figured out how I'm gonna mount this. You know, trying to keep it as simple as possible. I don't want it to be too complicated. I don't want it to look terrible in the end. I've decided to use these 4 bolt holes on the top instead of the 4 on the bottom. So I took some 3/16 plate and drilled 2 sets of holes. So I can, basically I've got 3/4 of an inch of movement. There isn't much room between these holes and the back of the master cylinders. I even had to notch out the plates. But yeah, I've got a little bit of adjustability there. And I mean, if it's way off, I might just have to cut the bracket off and move the whole bracket entirely, but I do have 2 different settings to mount. And all they do is they just take a regular 1/4 inch bolt. I'm happy I didn't have to go and buy metric bolts or anything like that. And then I left these 2 areas here that I can weld pieces of tubing off of up to the dash bar. Now, if I put it in and I find that there's too much movement, if it's flexing stuff too much, I can always run an ear off the side of the steering column, right? I can weld an ear on here that allows me to run a bolt into like one of these guys, just to stiffen it up that much more. But I think this will work. This thing won't bend at all. I think it's gonna work really well. So this is why I keep all my end cuts. This is all just scrap I had laying around. This is 1.25 inch. I've already coped out the ends. Fits my 1 3/4 inch dash bar that I have. That's just another piece of scrap laying around. And I'm just gonna weld. I'm gonna start by tacking both of these guys on, just like so. And then we'll set it back under there and make sure it's in the right spot. I would say that's gonna work. Like I say, I've got some adjustability too. I can bring the pedal away from the floor another 3/4 of an inch if I wanted to, but that's about as tucked as it's gonna get. Time to do some finish welding. And there we have a brake pedal installed. Now, I was able to TIG the bottom, but I couldn't get my TIG torch up there. So what I ended up having to do was use my MIG. So the welds don't look as pretty, but they are solid. So now we have a working brake pedal. And now right now, because there's no fluid, there's very little resistance. So when I push on the brake pedal, nothing moves. Like it seems very solid. The real test is when I get my brake lines plumbed and we actually have resistance against the pedal to see if this whole unit will pull down. But I mean, like, I can't really move it. So I am happy with that. I don't think I need to brace it anymore. And one thing about the Wilwood, the brake pedal pad can be moved to different locations. Like you can center it with these two holes, or like I did, I moved it all the way to the right to give my left foot some more room here. And you know, when I take my right foot off the gas and swing it over to the brake, it's that much closer. But I'm thrilled with how that turned out. Like, I would love for all this to have been under the truck, like my original plan. You know, all this is like, especially when the brake lines come out, just encroaches on my leg room. But I mean, I'm dealing with what is probably the smallest cab you could possibly get next to some of the mini trucks. But I mean, this is gonna, I think this has less room than a mini truck. And you know, like, it is what it is. This is not gonna be the most comfortable ride, you know, in any way. But it will work, and it will be fast. So, you know, it's not ideal, but it will work. It is cool. I have sat in it already, and I do have leg room. Like, my knees aren't hitting it, but I also don't have the brake lines running out of it yet either, because unfortunately the brake lines run right out the back, so I almost have to like loop them. Like, they have to come out and loop back. So that'll be fun. But I mean, I have a gas pedal, I have a brake pedal. Those are done. So all in all, very simple unit to put together and install. And I'm glad it works. I'm glad I found a combination that'll work for this truck. And now I can move on to the next thing. So that's it for this video. Catch you on the next one.